media has become a huge driver of Black culture. But is it really a place where we can affect meaningful long term change? And how do we safeguard and protect the places that Black women, especially, have created within the confines of something we don't own or control? And how do we fight back against the very intentional ways that the capitalists are trying to undermine social media as a safe space and an agent of social change and community for Black people? Well, I'm glad y'all asked because we are talking about it after the break.
Brokers, welcome to another episode of Brokers, where we talk about the unbelievable ish this country has done to keep us broke. Now here are your hosts, Amber and Erica.
Hey y'all, this is Amber.
And I'm Erica.
And today, y'all, believe it or not, this is the first time we are talking about it. We are talking about social media and Black America. And we are talking about the spaces that Black people have created in the digital universe. Not only has social media ushered in an unprecedented era of Black creatives and Black entrepreneurs, y'all probably sipping on y'all weight loss tea right now. It's almost the new year.
Wow, Amber.
but social media has also been a huge driver of social change, a tool of justice, and a powerful place for Black people to commune and speak our mind. But like everything that is good, there also comes some bad because we have seen an unprecedented galvanizing of the trolls coming out to attack Black people, Black women particularly, but also the people that normally lived in the fringes of our society have gotten a good old light shined on them
like
on social
roaches.
media. Yes, and it has amplified extreme radical voices and normalized a lot of the rhetoric that we were able to sort of hold at bay before social media became a thing.
Amber, let me ask you this, Amber. Okay, but this is my first
ask
question.
me, girl. Ask me,
My first
girl.
question is: I know you from Dallas, right? You from South Dallas, Amber, right? Okay. I just want you to say social one more time. What are you saying? What is the word that is coming out of your mouth? What is that?
I said social. Social.
What is that though?
That's how you say it. See, let me tell y'all something about bougie Black people. Okay, have y'all ever noticed, like, with bougie Black people, they get that's my grandma used to say, a dime above bus fare, and the pendulum always moves. So last week the issue was my sound and my light. Oh, bitch went out and got a 1999 ring light. Now she can't say nothing about that. Okay, I was in the recording early today. She can't say nothing about that.
Amber was on time today. Amber was on
Hear
time.
me?
She's
Can't
lit
say
up.
nothing about that. So now I done said social 11,220 times in the last 47 seasons. And now she want to bring it up. But that's
I've never
right.
heard it. I've never heard it.
That's
Amber.
all right,
I've never heard
y'all.
of it.
That's all right.
And that's fine. I respect you.
Lancaster
Look.
forever. Lancaster forever.
Okay, I respect you. So Amber, we're just coming off the break. So, outside of saying social, what have you been doing with your family? Like what were y'all into?
Ooh, y'all. So I had a lapse in judgment. And I decided sometimes this summer that I was gonna rent a cabin that accommodated 20 people and take my whole ass family to Broken Bow for Christmas. Okay, my family, my husband's
Broken Bow
family.
is Oklahoma, and
Yes,
they have these cabins, and that's
yes.
where the people who have 10 cents above bus fare, that's where they go to spend their 10 cents. Okay, go ahead, Amber. That was
So
background.
basically, we went down to Oklahoma to the Beavers Bend National State Park up in the mountains to relive every Tyler Perry movie that you have ever seen. Okay, complete with fights and wigs flying and
Literally.
all toxic elders, all the things, y'all, all the things. And you know what? It's still so crazy. Just like in the Tyler Perry movies, somehow, some way, we still managed to have a good time. I have had to book an emergency session with my therapist, but I made it. Y'all, the lights went out. We got there on Thursday. Thursday night, the power in the whole town went out. Okay. So we sitting in the cabin, 20 Negroes in the dark in the middle of Oklahoma. Okay. And then the lights came on and it was WWF. So all I'm saying is, It's been a lot. It's been a lot, but God is still yet on the throne. Hallelujah.
I would
Thank you,
just say
Jesus.
that a lot of y'all always talking bad about Tyler Perry, and I'm y'all because y'all say that Tyler Perry is not relatable in his content. That like nobody acts like this. It's not real. Well, look, Amber said the content is very relatable.
Okay.
Well,
But how was your Christmas, boo? How
it
was your
was very
dignified, bougie Christmas?
it was very gingerbread houses. It was very Uno games. It was very suburban. I mean,
I
yeah,
love it. I love
it
that
was.
for you. I do. I
I,
love
I
that for you.
don't, but yeah, I don't. So I would have traded places with you. But okay. Anyway, I'm just actually happy that we have our guest today that we have. And today's guest is a little bit different than a lot of the other guests that we've had on the show because, like, just her being here is sort of a reflection of what we're talking about in today's episode. And so, what had happened was our friend Amber here was working with someone who was going to be a guest on our show. And normally I have to do the heavy lifting of the production side, trying to secure guests because, Amber is too busy in her career and she just relegates that stuff to me, I guess. So Amber was doing this and her guest couldn't make it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Amber, what are we going to do? And as luck, as serendipity, as the universe would have it, I'm on Twitter and I'm always on Twitter. And there was a woman who was like, I got a lot of opinions and, from pickles to politics. And I don't feel like dealing with the podcast. So who wants me on their show? And I was like, well, you said booking. The booking usually means money, and we don't have no money. But are you willing to join us on the show anyway? And she actually said yes. And the really incredible thing about this story to me is because it just kind of shows how you can really, in real time in life, build this digital community that seems fake on the outside, right? Everybody's always like, social media is not real. And it sometimes isn't real, but you can put flesh on it, right? And make it real. And so that's what we're having. That's what's happening today. So I am going to bring our guest to us and introduce her. So we have with us today, we have Fernanda Meyer, and she has been a social worker, a trainer, a teacher, an international traveler for over 20 years. Her experience began while she was in college and eventually transitioned into ESOL and college readiness instruction for schools, districts, and community-based organizations before taking on social work and account management. She attended the University of Wisconsin at Madison, graduating with degrees in international relations. Would you say?
I said, go Badgers.
Oh gosh, I love.
Yeah, I thought you was throwing up the West Side. We thought you was throwing up.
No. Not to be confused.
University of Wisconsin at Madison.
Wisconsin.
Yes, graduated with degrees in international relations and Latin American studies. Born in Accra, Ghana, Fernanda has lived in New York, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Wisconsin. You didn't tell us you had lived in Texas, girl.
I was in Dallas until last year.
What? Okay. Puerto Rico and now in New Orleans since she moved to the United States. And she thrives while working remotely as a digital nomad and creatively incorporates her global adventures into her work while leveraging her diverse experiences and knowledge to best serve her clients' needs. She's passionate about social justice, decolonization, environmental conservatism, conservation, and making the world a better place for everybody that's coming after us. So, Fernanda, thank you for joining us. We are so happy to have you.
Me.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
So tell us who you are, who your people are.
We don't have enough time. So what I will say is that I am truly a third culture kid in the sense that I was born abroad, moved to the United States, and have lived in so many other places that I really don't just claim one set. I have had multiple partnerships on different labels, if you will. And a lot of that comes from what we discussed earlier, what you discussed in the opening about digital friendships and digital community, I have also found that pre-internet with my travel community.
Oh,
So I started traveling wicked early. I was 14 the first time I left the United States after having come to the US from Ghana. I was 14 when I went on a mission trip with my then high school, and I went to the Dominican Republic to go and teach a bunch of brown kids about white Jesus, which at the time I thought was really altruistic. Now, fast forward 33 years, 30, I don't even know how old I am, 30 plus years later, I realized that I was not altruistic. I was just a young colonizer.
we've been
And
saved from that too, so don't feel bad. Amber and I recovered as well.
yes. So, going through those travel motions and meeting people while on the road became that community for me. I mean, I still send postcards and handwritten letters to people I've known 20 years, people I've studied abroad with, etc. So when the internet became basically a public utility that we all pay for, which is ridiculous, that community grew. And there were people that I met through the socials that I met in person for the first time abroad, which to many people sounds like the recipe for a horror story, but in fact has been some of the most enlightening experiences I've ever had. So that is who my people are. My people are where the same mindset are and not necessarily in the same language. I speak Spanish fluently because I wanted to be able to communicate with the places I was going to primarily, and learning Spanish helped me with a little bit of French, a little bit of Italian, and enough Portuguese to be dangerous. So I can go places and sound like a little bit less foolish, but still also show some sort of appreciation for the places that I am and not just going as a consumptive tourist.
Yeah. And I love that
Uh-oh.
you sort of talk about consumption because one of the things that I love most about how Black people have sort of subversively reclaimed these digital spaces is that we've taken these sort of bastions of capitalism. Like you look at Facebook, this sort of $539 billion behemoth, and
Oh
Twitter's
my
worth 50
goodness.
billion or 44 billion, and
Is it
TikTok is worth
though?
It's not
allegedly.
anymore, but
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
And then TikTok is supposed to be worth $50 billion. And yet, against these sort of capitalistic backdrops, we are creating these thriving communities that are
Mhm,
amplifying voices and giving people connections that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I love your story because it really reminds us that that's the power of these digital spaces to do just that, to connect people,
mhm.
you know? Yeah.
I don't know if either of you are early adopters like me, but I joined Twitter when you could still text to tweet, and 40404 was a short code. It's still in my phone, which is wild. And there were less than a million people on the platform when I joined Twitter. And I didn't think it was anything except me kind of having conversations with myself. And every once in a while, somebody would chime in. That was over 14 years and 14,000 followers ago. So I'm not necessarily a brand. I'm not an influencer. I'd like to call myself the anti influencer, actually. And I still have a boatload of organic followers because I say things that resonate with people that they may or may not, until they saw what I said, make sense to them.
Mhm.
So I love that about it. And you use a great word, subversive, because that's what it is. Anything that we do, especially as Black women, is subversive because our joy is a revolutionary act. Any success that we take is a revolutionary act. Notice I said take,
Yes.
not earn. And one of the things that really has blown my mind about Twitter is that even with all of the misogynoir, even with all of the just virulent sexism and homophobia and just all the isms, we still win. And that's what makes them so angry, because anything that they throw at us, we still figure out a way to make fun of and turn into a hilarious watch Twitter as a family. We're going to Jones on you all night party. And I think that that is something that is only we do. I don't know that any other group of people, and I won't even lump it all in Black Twitter, although we can, umbrella it as Black Twitter. I don't think that there's any other group that does that except in like the really disgusting 4, 8, whatever chans that are out there now in these semi-offline groups that are just hate factories. That's the only other place that there can be any sort of a parallel drawn, except one group clearly uses their powers for evil and one uses them for good.
And of course, that for me is one of the really great things about. And I'm a Twitter girl, so I don't do anything with pictures. I don't know how to work IG. You got to talk to Amber about that. I don't know how this. I don't know about anything over there. So I wasn't like you in terms of I got a Twitter account a long, long time ago. Like I've had one for a long time, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
start engaging with it as long as I've actually had an account. And even
Mm,
still, I'm not a prolific tweeter at all, right? I'm just somebody that sits in the shadows. And if you ask me what the story of the day is, I know it, right? But I'm not engaging in that way.
mhm.
But the part that I really, really do appreciate is literally how this technology, this platform has been able to bring people together who never would have met. And it's not even hype. So I just started a PhD program in September.
God
It is
bless
not
you.
Right,
no,
right.
it is not hyperbole to say that one of the reasons that I did this is because of Twitter. Like going to this space, being exposed to new people and ideas, and wanting a new thing
Mhm.
is because of social media. And so it's a very, on one hand, for me, it's a very silly thing to admit to, right? Like, so you in school because of Twitter, and I'm like, yeah,
No.
kind of.
I,
I
I
basically
I
am.
think it's the opposite. I think it's inspiring to be able to say that you found community with strangers so much so that you are inspired to better yourself. I don't see how that's any different than watching a master class or listening to a podcast. Social media, unfortunately, has gotten this really bad rap, and I understand why. We have commodified narcissism with social media. And the fact that the words personal brand exist tell you everything you need to know about what social media is used for, right?
Mhm.
So when you peel back the layers of capitalism and peel back the layers of like forced spending and just ad, but it's somebody who looks like you, so it doesn't feel like an ad, you'll realize that social media is not this terrible thing. In fact, it is an amazing tool that people have weaponized,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
If you see everything as a nail, everything that looks like a hammer is going to be a hammer. But
Yeah.
if you see it as a toolbox with all kinds of things that you can use to build something, it's not going to be a weapon. And that's how I look at social media. And I say that because I've been the subject of pylons over years. I mean, I have a
Sure.
250,000 people blocked on Twitter. I kid you not.
I'm like, how you get that many? Did you?
Um, well, software, couple of bots, and some really good friends who are developers who showed me how to block en masse. And when you've gone through some pretty serious pileups and people doxing you and like, I know your address, please show up. Like, let's come on, you already got it. You got it. Come on. They never do. They have
Of
never
course.
do. Um, it's mostly just like shallow online threats, especially when I'm like, okay, so you have my address and here's yours. Because again, people don't know who they're communicating with. They
Right.
assume that when
Mhm.
they bully you online, you're not going to bully them
Mhm.
back. I'm
Mhm.
not the one or the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is how I eventually got to 250,000 people blocked. But what that also taught me is that, well, okay, if all of these people can make me feel so horrible about myself, I can turn that around and help other people feel good about themselves, help other people, and use this platform that brought all these trolls to the yard for something positive. So,
And ain't that
whether
what
it's
Black women always do? Like, don't we always come and save a thing, right? So whether it's if I think about this in terms of social media and relating that to maybe the tools that our grandmothers had before us and how they built community and had mutual aid and did all of those things, um,
yep.
I feel like we can build that here. But then I also feel like I don't want to be the one comparing us to our ancestors in that way because I don't think we are the same as they were, right? Like I'm not one of
Can
those
never be the
people.
same.
No, no, no. We can't be the same, but I just don't. I guess I just don't want to diminish the legacy of my ancestors, right? By saying
Oh,
that the community
absolutely.
I'm creating on Twitter is equivalent to theirs, but I do see some equivalencies, right? In terms of the things that they were
Mhm.
able to do and build that we're able to then do and build in social spaces.
I think the difference, to your point, is that their labor was literally physical,
Yeah.
right? Harriet Tubman was literally hiding folks and shooting guns and like things that we can now do with a few clicks of a mouse. So we can't quite compare it, but it's still happening in the sense that we are still saving one another and we're still building community and what we are still evolving and coming back and away from all the horrible things that are continually done to us. Now, though, it's digital as opposed to in your face physical. And I think that's one of the main differences between what our ancestors experienced and what we are. I would have loved to see them with the internet, the mountains that they could have saved.
Look, some of these writers, just the shade alone, how they would have done it in tweet form would have been fascinating.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Can you
That would have been,
imagine James Baldwin with a Twitter account?
I cannot,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
wish, but I
Yeah.
wish.
Yeah.
So speaking
In our
about
next life.
yes, in terms of Twitter and the spaces and creating spaces for safety, I think everybody knows about this recent case, and y'all have to tell me because I don't know if it was the city of Los Angeles or the state of California, whoever it was against Tory Lanez, whichever group it was against Tory Lanez. And of course, as he was on trial for the shooting of Meg Thee Stallion. And we know that we have seen several different stories be very polarizing, especially in the Black community. And this, for me, was one of those instances, right? Like, it was very clearly a one side versus the other side on this. And for me, it was kind of sad. But I was also, in my naivete, I was also trying to hold space for. I see, Amber, you didn't hold space for nobody, but I was trying to at least hold space to try to understand. I was like, can I at least understand something was happening over there on the other side? I didn't come to it, but I was trying. Maybe that's foolhardy, but that's where I was. So, y'all, let's just talk a minute about what you saw as you experienced in your whatever your echo chamber is on whatever social you're on as it relates specifically to that trial.
Amber, you want to kick us off?
So for me, I was where you were, but I was only there for a second. When my brother opened his mouth the first time, that's when I got off the train.
Which brother?
When Tory Lanez, when he opened his mouth talking the foolishness, because initially I was not sympathetic to him. I was sympathetic to the narrative that Meg had put out about why she told the story she told, about having a fear that the police would come and do harm to all of them that was greater than the fact that she had got shot in the foot.
Yeah.
And so I was sympathetic to him as a Black man who couldn't get access to the authorities, because for better or for worse, even when you are a criminal defendant, you want to have stories documented as soon as possible. You still want to have a fair trial. You don't want to be knocked up against the wall by a system that is antagonistic to your existence. So I was sort of sympathetic to all of that going on in the backdrop. What happened to her? The fact that he lost the benefit of a full investigation at the beginning. But then when he started talking, because when she started talking, I understood why she did what she did. I understood the concern. I am a former prosecutor.
And for those who don't know, Amber, what did she do?
So initially, Megan told the police and the medical providers that she had not been in an altercation with Tory. When the police first came to the scene, she denied being shot. She denied that there were any guns. And in the first interview she gave, why she said she did that was because she was afraid that if she said to the police that there was a weapon involved, that the police would escalate the situation and it would put them all in danger, because she was afraid that they would get shot, that they would see these two Black men, because Tory had his security, who was a Black man as well, and that the police would start becoming hyper aggressive.
They would be police.
It would ultimately lead to more violence. And so she initially denied that there was a gun present. She initially denied being shot. That's the story she gave at the hospital. And then when the medical providers came back to her and the doctor said, "Sis, There are bullet fragments
Bullets.
in your foot. Bullets. So you were shot. This is not glass. This is bullets. Um, that was the first time that she actually told the truth about what happened. And so that was the first time I came into knowledge of sort of what happened, why there were inconsistent stories. Because, at first everybody's like, oh, that girl is a liar. She didn't get shot. She didn't get shot. And Tory was initially not speaking in any of this. He
Yep.
was letting the Twitter goons do all his dirty work.
Why not?
So when Megan initially spoke, not only was I sympathetic to her, but I was actually also sympathetic to him for the reasons I stated.
Right, because we talk on this show all the time, Amber, about what the penal justice system does to Black people, Black men specifically. We talk about, and so when I'm saying holding space, I'm like, I know that people, like, it's just rough out here for a brother who's dealing with all this kind of stuff, right? So yeah, that makes sense why she would be like, I don't know what happened.
And there's still so many questions, because even when the story came out and she finally acknowledged that she was shot, there was no mention of intent. So I'm like, okay, was this an accident? Was they fighting? Like, what exactly happened? So there was still a lot of uncertainty, and I still was not ready to throw him to the bottom of the trash can. And then when he opened his mouth and started talking, and believe it or not, and as somebody, I'm a defense attorney other than the 5 minutes I was a prosecutor. I actually don't have a problem with people saying, I'm going to make the state find me guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not going to do the state's job for them. But it was his very intentional choice to go on a smear campaign against Megan that bothered me. It wasn't even because he wasn't even defending himself. He wasn't even talking about the case. He was peddling in all of the tropes people had about her to make her look bad.
What did he say though? Because I didn't see that part.
So he was at first he was doing a lot of reposting. People were saying very nasty
he wasn't
things.
saying anything.
Right. People were saying very nasty things about Meg's. She had been going through the issue with her record label, fighting with the head of, I believe it was 1501 Entertainment. I don't remember the name of it.
The other witness's man.
Yes.
Which is another thing. So while this whole shooting was going on, Meg was trying to leave her label, who her best friend Kelsey's boyfriend is the CEO of. So you want to talk about mess. It is so messy. So messy. Tory Lanez was friends with Kelsey's boyfriend, who was the CEO of the label Meg was trying to leave.
Correct.
So Meg was not only dealing with the legal issues of being shot, the terrible relationship and public persona issue, she's also dealing with the financial issues of trying to leave a record label that has financially abused her for years, that is friends with the man who just shot her. So like, when you pull apart all the layers, it is wild. And another thing she said that really made me go completely sour on him was, she said to the effect of, I know how the system treats Black men. I wasn't going to be responsible for that happening to him, no matter how much I hurt. She shouldered that to keep him safe. And then fast forward a year, the state that wasn't even a year, it was like 9 months. The state decided they were going to officially charge him. And then that's when he went on said smear campaign, started reposting and retweeting things that other people were saying that were transphobic, calling her Marcus the Stallion, calling her everything.
Talking about her sexual history, people she had been
oh my
with.
God.
I mean, just so nasty. That is
the court pulled out, right? Like the defense.
I mean, the court acknowledged some of it. And the defense attorney, the prosecutor read off several of the tweets that had been identified by Megan's team and by others. And they said, okay, look, here's where you liked this inflammatory tweet about her. Here's where you retweeted this awful thing about her. And people are still calling it the Megan Thee Stallion trial. The girl was never on trial.
She is the complaint.
I think that's
LA County versus Daystar. Her name was nowhere in any of that.
Right. I think a lot of that, though, is just our own ignorance of how the penal justice system works, right? Like who's on what
Sure.
side, what's a criminal trial versus a civil trial. I think people just in general. And that's one of the things that was so glaring to me in all of these conversations about it is
Hmm.
how ignorant we are in general,
Yep.
how we lack media literacy, how we lack information about how the system works and who does what in a trial, depending on the type of trial it is. And I think that was just front and center for me.
I will 1000% agree with that. And I will go a step further and talk about how myself and several other people who are academics and researchers on digital, everything digital, if you will, on social media specifically, have identified since 2010, 2012, how there has been a watershed moment wherein we have gone from primarily positive press about things to predominantly negative press about anything having to do with Black people and, more importantly, Black women. Anyone who is Black and femme, or who is Black and non-binary, or who is what they say is MAGE or other marginalized populations suffers. And with Obama, that it became really, really clear how really negative stories had more clicks, and there were just it was eye-opening. As a matter of fact, The Atlantic did a story about it. Pew Research Center, as well as Nielsen, they've all done research studies over the last 12 years that show how much more profitable hate and division are than positive stories. So when you fold that into the things like Shade Room, Say Cheese, Digital, The Breakfast Club, all of these quote Black blogs and talk shows, they benefit from running
Absolutely.
clickbaity, terrible, negative stories about everybody, but primarily Black women and marginalized communities. So that trial was just like this perfect microcosm of that. There were more clicks and more hits on incorrect, untruthful, and just downright insulting things about Megan than there were about Tory at all.
Yeah.
Like it was wild how many more anti-Megan posts than there were than anything having to do with Tory, positive or negative.
And I think that's part of the danger of curating communities like the ones we have on social media. I mean, the beauty is that
Yeah.
we have this space where we can be free, where we can access each other. But then the downfall is that it is completely unregulated, and you have whole swaths of the population who are ingesting social media like journalism, right? And so they repeat things that have been unverified or that have no basis in fact or that come from a place that has zero reputableness about it, and it just lives because it metastasizes. So then it doesn't become we are repeating this because of the credibility of the source. We're just repeating it because of the size of the snowball. Like my husband gives me so much shit because he'll start a story with, "Did you hear about this?" And I'm like, "Did you read that on social media? Because that was not in the news." "Why you always gotta ask me that? Why I'm like, because you're repeating it like it's news, but that is gossip. That is not news. Like you are asking
Mhm.
me this, like, and then you'll say you heard it on the news, and it's like you did not hear that on the news.
No,
You read
Charlemagne
it.
is
No.
not a
Yeah.
journalist.
You read it on Facebook. Somebody posted or somebody shared a post, and I mean, that just happened today. He was asking me, "Did you like the Galleria Mall here in Dallas? Did you hear the Galleria was closing?" And I'm like, "No, that's not true. That's not true." Like, but because people see things on social media, they ingest it the same way. And I think that is very dangerous to the
Mhm.
community because we
Mhm.
haven't put any systems in place to curate reliability, credibility, safety, weight to give to the sources. Like, who's saying this? Is this something we can repeat? But we just look at something and assume because it's been shared 15,000 or 20,000 times, oh, it must be true. Like, God bless
Yeah.
all the people that Black Twitter has accidentally buried. Okay. Just kill these people. Just killed them. Okay. Dead. Put them dead in the ground. 20 million repeats and shares. And these people, like, I'm not dead. I'm
Right. Here
still
I
here.
am.
I'm still
But I
Yeah.
think but
Every
that's
time
where
Betty White was trending, every time Betty White was trending. So then when she actually died, no one believed it.
here. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
R.I.P. to Betty White.
In
Amen.
real life this time.
Right.
In real life this time.
But the thing, as I think about what was happening with the trial and the trolls and everybody, the moment for me, the beautiful part of all of that is Black women being like, y'all not finna do this. Like we are not going to let y'all, we're not going to let y'all do this today. And the way that Black women came together, and from the beginning in support of Megan, right? Because it's one of those situations where, you know, we believe a victim, right? So you come and you tell us that you got shot and we believe you and we're gonna, you know, ride for you. But the way that Black women came and tried to provide information and tried to point out stuff that wasn't real and tried to point people to real sources, and also shout out to Megan the reporter. um, for actually, if y'all don't know Megan the reporter, she is a reporter. I can't remember what outlet she's from on the West Coast, but she deals with legal news, courtroom cases. And so she covers a lot of things. And she was covering the case for her news outlet. And so she was live tweeting things that were going on in the trial. But it was very helpful because as she was doing that, she was educating people about the trial and what was going on. But anyway, and all of that, that was an opportunity again for Black women to galvanize and to be like, you know what? Megan, we don't know you. You probably never gonna see this, but here we are coming together, and we want to highlight all of these things that we think are true about what's going on, and at the same time, blocking 250,000 people, right? Like, because you have to. There's a lot of trolls to be blocked out there. But y'all have anything else about Megan?
I do just want to say one thing to add to that is I love how one thing Black women are 100% golden for is that's the only place in the digital atmosphere where I saw people being sensitive to the contours of Megan's real life, like where you saw people reminding folks that this is a woman who has lost every member of her close family, right? Her mother has passed, her grandmother has passed, her father has passed. And so one of the things I love about particularly the Black digital spaces curated by women, is that it's one of the few places online where people are humanized and thought about more than just their persona or what they do or what they can be or what they can contribute. Because nobody else was talking about the fact that while we're going into the holidays, which is probably already going to be a difficult time for somebody who suffered that amount of loss, but think about what it must be like to have your whole personal life on Front Street without anybody that you are very close to in the world being there. And I just love that about us. And I just want to say that because we are very good about dehumanizing people in these capitalist spaces. And I love that this is one of the places where we are mindful not to do that.
Absolutely. Now, Fernanda, one of the things that does happen too in these digital spaces is we try to build this community. And then sometimes, like we said with this trial, there's some people who maybe don't want to build community. So one of the things that pops up all the times is the diaspora wars, right? And so you, as somebody who is from Ghana, who has lived all over the United States, right? You probably see different sides of that, just like we all do. So what are your thoughts on some of these? I don't know. I'm trying to be kind today because we are close to Jesus' birthday. So I'm trying to keep it nice, keep it holy. I'm just going to call them disruptors because I feel like that's a benign enough term. What about some of these disruptors like, maybe it's ADOS or other people who want to sort of specifically engage in trying to, again, I'm trying to be nice, build divides within the diaspora. Thoughts?
It's all rooted in anti-Blackness, period.
Yes.
Whether it is African people speaking down on diasporadical people, which is what I like to call us.
Diasporadical. I was about to say, I never heard of this one.
Diasporadical. It's a term that's gone around for the last few years.
Okay.
Which I love. And I use that almost exclusively. But whether it's, directed towards the Americas or towards Africa, it's all rooted in anti-Blackness, which is all internalized white supremacy. So that's first of all. Anyone who participates in the diaspora war of any sort, or a battle, or battle rap, I don't care what you want to call it. Anybody who participates in that is directly contributing to anti-blackness,
You mean
because
people
that's
like
what it is.
Akon? I'm sorry.
We're getting there. He
Okay.
is, I don't remember 1.1 million, but he is up there. What I will say is that, as somebody who was asked if I rode a zebra to school when I was a kid, because everybody just assumes that everyone in Africa lives in a safari, I guess, or called the ridiculous African booty scratchers, and I'd just be like, okay, poor white trash, and I would laugh and walk away. So I learned very early on to develop a thick skin and give it better than I got it, so that people left me alone. And when I started going to schools that had, and in full transparency, Gainesville, Florida did not have a whole lot of Black people in it. That's where we first moved to.
Okay.
Gainesville at the time was a university surrounded by a trailer park. That was Gainesville, Florida in the 80s. And anybody who has been there up until 1992 knows this to be true. So Gainesville was not exactly the most diverse place. And then we moved to Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, if you've ever
Well, it
been
wasn't
to
Milwaukee, though.
Wisconsin-
You didn't move to Milwaukee.
Oh, but ma'am, I was 20 minutes south in Racine. Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, it was worse. Yeah. At least Milwaukee has Black people.
Oh, yes.
So, oh yeah, Racine, we were the only family of color all the way up until we damn near got to high school.
Wow.
So yeah, it was very, very white. So when I ultimately did started going to schools and to programs and then to college with other Black people, me even saying that I was African or had been to Ghana was just this, you could see their heads exploding, like, how, when you speak so well? And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is what all the books talk about. I've been preparing for this my whole life. I used to have to combat white supremacy with white people. Now it's you, and you look like me. So then that becomes this like double education situation, because you have to explain to them why that's racist AF and why complimenting how I speak is not a compliment, and then tie that into how them being Black makes it even worse. And they're just like, no, you're making it up. You're full of it. So me seeing that happen in real time in the digital space in these diaspora wars makes me want to fight people. It makes me want to fight, because you're doing the white supremacist work for them. You are literally doing their job for free.
Yeah.
In many cases, even paying to do it. You are on a $1,000 phone with a $75 a month internet plan, talking crazy to people who look like you.
At least Candace always gets a check for it, doing it.
And what's sad is that most of
husband-
them are doing it in the name of Black excellence and
Correct.
Black girl magic
Yes.
and wanting
in their
us to be
mind-
better.
And there it is. That success is exactly equated to whether or not we do it as well as white people or not.
Yeah.
That is literally the benchmark.
The white
if
people
you
are the
will.
bar, right?
Mhm.
Aren't
Correct.
white people the bar?
Whiteness is the bar. So as long as what we do looks like what they do, it's successful. And that is why earlier in the conversation I said, I realized I wasn't a mission student. I was a baby colonizer. I know that now.
Mhm.
But then, and even, 10 years ago, yes, Black travel, boop, boop, I'm out here doing it, 20 countries, and I used to be excited about keeping track of the countries that I visited, because I'm a Black woman, because I'm African, wasn't always a citizen, I was undocumented, I'm queer,
It's
like there are all these
unusual.
different intersections, right? And I'm like, but I did it, yes. And then I'm like, oh my God, wait, the I did it part is because white people do it too. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. And then so when you unpack that, it's like, oh man, so many of the things I'm proud of are like just duplicating white experiences. Oh, I'm a colonizer in blackface. What is happening? So yeah, diaspora wars, to bring it all back, are useless and awful, and I'm tired of them. And they're not disruptors. They are divisive trolls, many of whom are often white and who have avatars of Black people. There was a campaign that several amazing, amazing femmes put together some years ago, hashtag your slip is showing. And they identified AstroTurf accounts of people pretending to be Black in order to sow discord and anger amongst Black digital communities online. So they would go on Facebook pretending to be Black women. Their AAVE was terrible. They would call themselves ADOS or Foundational Black Americans. And as a matter of fact, the people who founded ADOS and the FBA were working for Republicans to begin with. And so they took these Republican talking points and then folded them up into Black digital spaces and created a Grand Canyon sized rift between those of us who are from the continent or diasporatical and Caribbean, and those of us who literally put our blood, sweat, and tears into the soil of this country to build the buildings that these white people live in. So they're the only ones that should get reparations, and on and on and on and on. They are all white propagandist talking points, like to the T. And so many people that are Black and who identify as Black have eaten them hook, line, and sinker, to the part where, like, you have the Shade Room that has been directly quoting Breitbart. You have Charlemagne the God, whose syndicated partner is Rush Limbaugh, may he rest in hell. You know, like, they're on the same network. Their offices and studios are in the same hallway, in the same buildings. When you have people who have platforms like The Breakfast Club that platform people like Rush Limbaugh, or when you have Mr. West going on to Alex Jones' show, you can see why so many FBA and ADOS people love these figureheads, because they are literally parroting the right-wing talking points that they have been spoon-fed through things like Your Slip is Showing and other completely ridiculous, divisive online campaigns. We eat the garbage they give us, and then we fight about it amongst ourselves because we lack the media literacy you spoke on earlier.
Well, we don't have real Black media that we once had, right? Like, not that we
Correct.
can long for times past, but there used to be a time. I'm from Houston, and us essentially grew up in Third Ward, and down the street there was the KCOH radio station, and it's like, in whatever your major Black city was, there was the equivalent of a KCOH where you could get your Black news. There was a Black paper, the, whatever defender of whatever city. And all of those things aren't available to us anymore. And so people are relegated to, yeah, absolutely, by design. But then we are relegated to go to the Shade Room and to the Breakfast Club and to Roland Martin to try to get our news, right? Like, so on the one hand, I do want to be kind to, I think, the people who take this and sort of run with it, because I can understand how it's so easy to fall into the trap. And so,
but can you?
I can see how it's easy to fall into.
So I want to push back on that a little bit, because if it's easy to fall into the trap, if you can see how it's easy to fall into the trap, you can also see how there are bajillions of alternate sources of information available.
Absolutely.
English isn't even my first language.
Absolutely.
Right? So English isn't my first language, and the internet wasn't around until I was a freshman in college, when I got my very first email address. Actually, I was a senior in high school going into college. And I will never forget, the very first non-school related email I got was from my sister, who was 5 at the time. And I thought my mom wrote it, because I was like, oh, that's so cute. I'm new at school. And my baby sister, who's at home, wrote me this email. And my mom was like, no, Anna definitely wrote that at school. They have their own computers. And I was like, what? She's 5. I'm in college. This is wild. Hashtag 90s. But still, if a child can learn how to use technology effectively, create TikTok videos, do Facebook and YouTube campaigns. If there are 7-year-old influencers, you mean to tell me that there aren't grown adult Black people who can't figure out that Rush Limbaugh may not be the role model?
Not at all that they can't. I'm just saying that propaganda is powerful. And so the propaganda that gets used against us to work against us is very powerful. And I see why people fall victim to that propaganda. And I see why they start to look at those sources that are being fed to them, right? It's easier to eat something that's being fed to you versus something that you have to hunt for. And that's the situation we find ourselves in, right? So people don't just have access to real news. They have to go find that. And so, I'm sympathetic.
I also think we are talking about the root of the thing, but you guys are talking about both sides. This all goes back to the fact that we are not teaching people how to think critically. Like there is a way. I always remember my eighth grade English teacher used to say a Mark Twain quote that the mark of intelligence is to entertain an idea without accepting it as true. And what we do in these digital spaces is that there is just a straight line of consumption that because you entertain it, it must necessarily
Mm-hmm.
be true because it's
Mm-hmm.
being entertained. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that what you're talking about, Fernanda, is this idea that we are not stopping to pause to be critically critical interrogators of
Mm-hmm.
Right.
what we are ingesting. And I think the reason why Erica can be sympathetic, on the other hand, is because nobody's teaching us that. Nobody's teaching us that. It's just in your mouth, swallow it. In your mouth, swallow it. And
Mm-hmm.
that is so, yes, that is so dangerous. And it's particularly dangerous in these unregulated markets where we have our communities because you are talking out of both sides of your mouth. Because in one hand, you want people to be safe. You want this to be a space where people have their defenses down, but then shit, they put their defenses down, and then, you know, everything that comes at them, they just accept it as true because their defenses are down, you know? And so then you have
Yep.
people like my husband who has a whole ass master's degree,
Leave him out of
whole
this.
ass master's degree, served in the United States Navy for 20 years, was building helicopters on ships, and is literally parroting shit that his cousin who just got out of jail posted on the internet. And it's like,
Amber.
bro. Because it's just you see it and you entertain it, so you have to accept it.
Yes. And I absolutely I
Yeah.
agree with both of you, of course, right? Like I absolutely do. I'm just saying I feel some kind of way because the thing is that shit is hard, right? People have to get up every day, try to figure out how to feed themselves, how to feed their families, how to keep their jobs, how to keep the lights on. And then you also want me to go and try to figure out how do I critically interrogate all of the media that's being fed to me. And then you also want me to figure out, well, how do I keep myself from getting the overdraft charges at the damn bank? How do I figure out this credit system that is naturally difficult to understand? Like all this stuff is
Mm-hmm.
complex by nature. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, and so because of that, I'm like, well, shit, I get it. Like it's not easy. None of this is easy.
I have yes. I see all sides of this particular conversation, not necessarily of all. I don't think the devil ever needs an advocate, ever. Because which
100%.
devil
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
advocating for?
yeah,
Which part of that?
100%.
yeah. It's
100%.
Um,
always the white devil.
but what fascinates me is how we, and when I say culture, I mean literally everybody from Morocco to Memphis in terms of us as a culture. How our culture has been not only so consumed, but equates to consumption so much so that it is that profitable for us to be divided and for us to, eat misogynoir line, hook, and sinker, right? Because that's what we're doing. And when you look at Akon, who's like, oh, it's a white thing for you to be with your children as a man. On
Oh
what
my
planet?
gosh. Oh my
On
gosh.
what planet?
Oh my
And then
gosh.
people chime in and are like, oh, yeah, no, that's a very African man thing to do. No, it's not. And who told you that? That's a very patriarchal thing to do, maybe back when they were hunting and gathering. But, bro, you haven't hunted or gathered nary a nothing in centuries. So, what is this? No, 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 no. My African father was my high school soccer coach before I got kicked out. He was my middle school soccer coach. He came to softball practices, and there were five of us. So my parents were both working full time and coaching teams and going to recitals. And so you can't sit up here and tell me that this is an African man thing to abandon your children. What? No. Secondly, those posts went viral so far beyond our community. That is where I find the issue. We don't know about a whole lot of white mess. they know about all of ours.
Yeah.
And that is where I think we should be especially critical, because who does it benefit? Who does the mess benefit? Who does the divisive information benefit? Who stands to make money from or otherwise really terrible things about us? It's not us.
Yeah.
The people who own these
No.
outlets who are charging for, ad space and whatever else, it's not us.
And it's a narrative shifting thing. I do agree with that point, because then it becomes a question of, okay, well, why are Nick Cannon and Akon becoming the faces of broken families and not Donald Trump? Because he got 3 baby mamas. Okay. He got 3 baby mamas, and he
Let's
left
talk
one
about
wife
it.
for the next one, cheating on one to go to the next one, to go to the next one. You know what I'm saying? And so that is what really bothers me about buffoons like Akon, is that they create
Yep.
unnecessary narrative shifts that make us the face of stuff that is really universal human stuff that has nothing to do with
anything that's bad. Black people are going to be the face of it because we are a pathology. Like,
Every
it
time.
doesn't matter what it is, right?
yes, but,
Like,
but
Donald
don't
Trump is
partake
never-
in it.
Donald Trump is never going to be the face of, and we all hate that broken fan. What the hell is that? But he's
Yes.
never going to be the face of that, right? Black people are always going to be the face of anything that is perceived to be negative. Like, that's who we are.
Yes.
Like, that's what they made us to be.
But
And-
that's why it pisses me off when people like Akon get his African ass on the internet and in media platforms and just hands them the narrative shift, because it's like, you're the one doing. Yes. We wasn't even talking about you. We was talking about Nick Cannon and his Rainbow
But we shouldn't even
Tribe.
be talking about Nick, except for the memes, the Christmas memes of his family tree, which I thought that was pretty funny though.
That was
Like,
funny. That was funny.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, you inserted yourself into something that was unnecessary and that you are largely inoculated from because of your financial privilege. So you get to paint this face on other Black men and other Black people, and then you get to go hide behind all the money you have. That's really what annoys me, because I'm like, we don't need no help. They're gonna do that anyway, because nobody's
Anyway.
they're blended families. Ours are broken families, right?
Yes.
So when the white people do it, it's blended,
It's
But when
co-parenting.
yes, but when we do it, it's broken, and it's like, bro, why you out here, like you said, just peddling an anti-Blackness, period.
But my favorite was the whole notion of, you got Nick Cannon. We know Nick Cannon has all these kids, right? But I hear a lot of, and I hear more men saying it's okay because Nick can take care of his kids financially, right? Like, as long as he can take care of his kids financially, it's not a problem. But then you got Keke Palmer, who's like, to me, Miss America, right? Like, everybody love Keke Palmer. Keke ain't done nothing to nobody. Keke come pregnant. She happy about being pregnant. They like, ooh, why she want to be a single mother? And I'm like, Nick Cannon has created how many single mothers he can create, and y'all think it's okay as long as he can take care of. And she
Or
can't be
Kiki Wyatt, same thing with Kiki Wyatt. She got 10 kids, and Kiki Wyatt, she always pregnant. Why she keep having these kids? Well, sis is on tour, so she working. She's presumably making enough money to take care of her kids. But because it's a woman, right? You can't do it, and that is what bothers me about, like, the Akons of the world, is because then when we have these conversations, you will have your Hoteps and your Snowteps quoting Akon as an authoritative source on why Nick Cannon is righteous and Keke Wyatt and Keke Palmer are not. And
the whole time Africa is like, and why am I in this?
Yes.
It's like, this ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yes.
We're not even here. None of us asked for this. Literally, none of us asked for this.
Yes.
So why are you bringing this up even? But yeah, he's a mess, Mr. Akon. And I think the eugenicist practices that Nick Cannon is doing, is just, it is unreal. Man's has a terminal illness, and he's basically breeding organ factories because he's most likely going to need an organ transplant for one of his syndromes. That's why he's having all these kids. It's not he can afford and take care of them. He needs organs.
I just hope in my spirit, Fernanda, I'm hoping in my spirit that is not the case. I really am. I'm hoping in my spirit that that's not why. I'm hoping
Why
even
else
that
would
it's
you
more
drop
like,
off seed in 11 states that
well,
you
to me,
yourself say
I don't
you
even
don't get to see?
I don't even think it matters why. To me, it is a safety issue to be out here pumping and
100%.
dumping unprotected all
Yep.
around the world like you Carmen San Diego. Okay. Like
Yep.
I to me, the only place like where I just shrug my shoulders at everybody involved is like, girl, are you bleaching that before you
wow.
because that is a safety issue. That is a
I
safety
don't
issue. And
I don't know if y'all saw when one of the children's moms, the baby's probably like maybe 7 or 8 months at this point, but
Okay.
she made mention on maybe TikTok and then again posted it on Instagram about how tired she is and how she feels like she and the baby have two completely different schedules and she needs help. And so this is one of Nick Cannon's children's
Yeah.
mothers.
Mhm.
And so people were rightfully in the comments like, sis, ain't you got that long Nick money? Can't
Right.
you
You
get
have
a
help?
nighttime doula? What happened to a nighttime doula? What happened to a nanny? What happened to the things so you can do your? And she says, and I quote, and who's going to pay for that? Girl, when I tell you the blogospheres went nuts, she basically admitted to him not giving her a dime. So this man who can take care of all of his kids
What
is
you mean,
letting the
Fernanda?
mothers
What
of
you
his
mean?
children pay for these child's upbringing completely.
What
She's
you
got a
mean?
job. What you mean? What do
That
I mean? She
and
said, and
she
I
can
quote,
she can
who's
have a
gonna
job,
pay
but
for it?
Amber, you need to go tell these ladies to find that man's social security number and get this paperwork underway. What are you even talking about? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And
I
No,
wish
this
I
turned
would.
into this back
I
and
saw
forth
that
and
too. I saw that too. And she's like talking about how people are making assumptions about her financial situation because she has a baby with Nick Cannon and people are assuming she has all this money. And I mean, you're right. She basically said, what money am I supposed to do that with? And I
yep.
think that again, it is part of the problem when you have people out here who are just living in these delusions we create on the internet, right? That oh, that's like
I
a
love
check.
that.
No, that's a baby. And if you want child support, you have to initiate a process to give that if the co-parent is not willing
Hmm.
to do that, you know, and yeah, it that I felt real bad when I saw that because I'm like, girl, girl.
I'm just glad Mariah is free. At the end of the day, like I'm pleased for her and good job, Mariah, for being
She got what she wanted. She put him out shortly after them babies were born.
free.
She got exactly what she wanted. That was
Good
a
for her.
contract.
Good for
Just
her.
like with Janet, that was a contract. That was planned out. I'm sure there was paperwork before the babies were born. He knew his time was short. Soon as them babies popped out, she's like, sir.
Good for her. Giving
Okay.
us a Merry Christmas with her kids by herself. 'Cause he too
Okay.
busy.
Again. She
Okay.
got the baby singing. Oh yeah, no. Mariah had a plan. She had a plan from Jump Street. She was like, "I'm gonna do this little IVF situation. Let's get this cracking." Yeah. He got free of her. If you want to keep it a buck, or she put him out. But either way, she is free. She was
Yes.
always free.
Yes. Thank God. Thank God that Mariah is free. So to sort of bring all this together, just personally, like I said before, I am very happy to have these digital spaces for me just to even like I said, I'm just lurking, right? I'm in the shadows because a lot of times I'm just like, what are the people saying? And it's really a lot for me, it's because I think I'm trying to think critically about the things I'm saying, right? I'm not the person that's just gonna be like, somebody said this and let me jump in. I'm like, let me digest it, let me figure out what's going on. And I do appreciate that as a community because I mean, Amber, we met through a person that we know in common, but our relationship has been built on this podcast.
100%.
Right. And so
100%.
I am grateful for what this technology has done to bring us all together, to bring groups of people all together who can get mutual aid when they need it. Like, for example, there is a person who I met recently I'm not gonna put all her business out there how I met her. But anyway, I met her and I started following her. And she happens to live in Buffalo. And she is one of the people now who is sharing links about how people can help, about people
Mm-hmm.
who need help. And I see that and I am so it's a tragic situation. So please don't
Mm-hmm.
misunderstand me. It's a tragic situation. But I just feel so good about the fact that she has her space in the world. And this is a way that she can actually tangibly, materially help people in her community. And I see so
Absolutely.
much of that, and it's beautiful to me. So I am grateful for these
Well,
communities on the internet.
and I think that's what makes Melon Husks, that's what I call him, takeover of Twitter so insidious and nefarious because it is where you can go and get real information in real time.
Yeah.
Unlike Facebook that catches on to stuff 2 and 3 days and weeks later, Twitter, you can see what's happening in Iran, in Palestine, in Buffalo, wherever right now. You
Yeah.
can click a hashtag and somebody's probably filming a video. Someone's got a live feed or someone's tweeting on the ground, whatever the case may be. And so for him to come in with Saudi money and Chinese money and start putting limits on that and start intimidating people who are sharing this information freely by inviting their oppressors back, that tells you right off the bat what his intentions are. So he doesn't want it to be free speech. He doesn't want it to be community digital spaces. He wants it to be an echo chamber of all the phobias and the isms, as evidenced by the accounts that he's retweeting, reposting, and the tweets that he's liking. He's now liking things from libs of TikTok whose tweets and actions can be directly attributed to no less than 5 domestic terrorist situations in the last 6 months. That's wild. Why are you, the owner of this platform, engaging with a rabidly ism phobic account? What? I'm sorry, what? But it's okay because if he keeps it up, he will not be in Tesla or Twitter anymore. Both of them have boards. So
Can
it's
I
only a
just say
matter of
that that makes me so, I lament that. Like the idea that Twitter is gone. And again, I feel very silly saying I
yeah,
lament the impending demise of Twitter, right? The fact that now
it
people are
feels
scrambling to find other spaces. Where do we go?
yep.
You know, is it Spill? Is it Post? Is it what, Mastodon or whatever that is? Like, where do the people go to find community now? And it's like if Black people don't have too much to do already, for us to have to then scramble to do that all, even though Twitter comes with, like y'all said, all of its problems, right?
Mhm.
For us to have to go rebuild somewhere else, and it's like we sick of building stuff. Like
Oh,
I'm
and
tired of building stuff.
I won't. I've already said a number of times,
What
you're
you
gonna
gonna
have to pry
do?
this app out of my cold dead hands. I'm not doing it. It's over 14 years at this
Yeah.
point.
Hmm.
And every single time I see another one of these apps go live and people get excited about it, I hold off. And then sure as shit stinks, 3 to 4 days later, massive security leaks, massive issues with censoring and racism. And these are silos of hate groups. And I'm like, okay, at least I'm still on Twitter with the devils I know and my 250,000 people blocked. Like I have curated my experience so well, so well. I've learned what words to mute and filter. I've learned how to set my notification filters. Like I get online and 90% of the time it's easy breezy beautiful cover girl. Occasionally some of my tweets will leave my sphere of control and then I have to, occasionally do battle, but I also don't argue with people on the internet for free anymore. So sorry, muted. You can argue with yourself. But I don't want to leave and try to recreate that. Like where, how? You can't. It was
Lightning in a
lightning in a
bottle.
bottle, as I saw somebody say the other day. I think
Yes.
it was
Yes.
so fresh. She
Yeah.
said, Twitter was lightning in a bottle. It came at the right place at the right time during, when we all needed it. So elections and monumental changes globally were happening, and people needed somewhere to coalesce and to get together and find community in one another. Now it's like, oh, who can say the most inflammatory thing to get the most retweets?
Yeah.
So that sense of community, if you don't already have it, would be incredibly difficult to try to find or recreate elsewhere.
And I think that's why the point you made about the ancestors, Erica, I don't think it was too far off, because this idea of pursuing and persisting in community against the backdrop of oppression, against the backdrop of censorship, against the backdrop of intentional disruption and undermining of the solidarity of our community, that really ain't nothing new. And so the fact that it is becoming a characterization of our digital spaces, I do think is an ode to the legacy that we follow from, and the fact that we are figuring this shit out in real time. We are figuring out how to make it work. We are figuring out how to persevere. We are figuring out how to overcome the algorithms and the shadow bans and all the stuff that they are doing to try to disrupt it. I mean, in many ways, it is not the same, but in a lot of ways, it is the same. And it is
Mm-hmm.
a testament to the fact that our belief in what we built and our refusal to just abandon it when the stuff gets hard, that really is a part of who we are. And that's a testament to the people we come from in real life, you know?
Yeah, I
Well
think
said.
yeah, I think that's true. But I'm like, I
I
don't know
think
why I feel so silly. I think it's true, but I
you
just feel so silly.
you're what I do appreciate though is that you were very silver lining focused.
I'm not usually
Yeah.
though.
She really ain't.
Really?
I'm no, no.
No,
Normally I'm
I am
I'm
the
arguing
not.
normal.
down about
I
being
am the
devil's
resident
advocate.
optimist. I am
Mm-mm.
the resident optimist. And
Amber is our has
Okay.
glass full. I'm usually like burn all the shit down. But today
Understood.
I don't
And I'm
know.
a
I have a
fire
lot of
sign.
grace today. I have a lot of grace for people today.
yeah,
Well,
because
But
the
hopefully you're going to
revolution
continue
has
to
to
do it.
be televised. This is as close as we are going to get to the revolution being
Correct.
televised. This is as close as we're going to get. And so I think that it is
Yeah.
very hard to talk about burning the shit down. Where it's like, well, damn, if a tree falls in the forest and ain't nobody around to hear it, does it make a noise? You know, so if we burning the shit down and ain't nobody there to report it or retweet it or
or make
hashtag it,
noise.
is it really being burnt down? You know, do we
Right.
need the verification? You know, so
Yep.
I understand why today. See, welcome to the optimist side. Your t-shirt will be in the mail
I
7
don't
to 10
like
business
it. I
days.
don't like it. Let's go back to burn the shit down.
I think we
Um,
can do both.
well, yes, we have to be optimistic while we burning it down.
There's literally there's a GIF for that. The one of the girl with the lighter and the hairspray, and she lights it and she gets really excited when the flame goes. That is that meme. What is happening here? Burning shit down with optimism.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm going
yes,
to
I
okay.
like it. I like it.
So, Fernanda, thank you so much for joining us. I really am excited how, things can all come together. And I appreciate you for helping us to bring our world together today when we weren't able to do it by ourselves, and for just in real time demonstrating community and being open for a conversation with strangers. So, thank you for that.
Well, strangers
Absolutely.
are just friends you haven't met yet. So it's my pleasure.
I love it. I love it. So tell everybody out here in Brokish Land how they can find you and follow you. I know for our friends who are going to be watching on YouTube, you are able to see Fernanda's Twitter handle on the screen, but tell everybody else who will be listening where they can find you on social media.
I, like I mentioned, have been an early adopter. So I am Les Nubian everywhere. And Les Nubian inspired by the group Les Nubians, who are amazing. And if you don't know of them, go check them out. Two beautiful French women who just, yes, LESNUBIANS is the band. I, being a single Black woman, am LE, and like Nancy, you like umbrella, B as in boy. I like India, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, E as in echo, Les Nubiennes on Twitter, Instagram. There might even be a YouTube channel in there somewhere, child. I don't know. But if it's Les Nubian, it's me. So please feel free to like, follow, engage. Please just don't like follow me and be weird and
Don't be
then
like Erica and lurk, is what she's saying. Why you gotta
no.
call me out at the end, Fernanda? We were doing good, and then here you
But
go.
I didn't finish. And then like say that you saw me somewhere days later and didn't say anything. And I'm like, no, that's
Oh,
creepy.
Yeah, I
We've
feel
never
you.
engaged, and then you feel comfortable saying that you saw me at such and such mall, but you follow. Don't do that.
Girl, I'm gonna be in New Orleans
Oh,
in
I'm
2 weeks. I'm gonna be in New Orleans in 2 weeks. Are
Oh
you
wait,
gonna
I go
have
to
coffee
Ghana
with me?
on the 10th.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Okay. Amber, tell
We'll
the
work
people
it
what's the
out. I'm
homework.
in Dallas pretty frequently, so we can
Oh
work
yeah, we
something
gotta
out.
we gotta have we
Yes.
gotta
Then
chop
tell
it up
us.
and have some
Tell us.
drinks. So the first part of the homework, we already got it. You need to be following Fernanda on social media, okay? So we can continue curating and strengthening our digital communities. And then also, we're going to post a clip in the receipts. It's about a 3-minute clip from a documentary called Dark Girls. And it is specifically about how Black women have used social media to curate healthy communities. So I want you guys to watch that clip. And then we're going to start a discussion about it on social media, what your thoughts are about what it looks like to create community on social media, how you have done that, and who your people are. Because if y'all got good, solid, especially Black women and Black femme people that you are down with on the internet who are blessing your life and who are making your timeline better, can you tell us so we can get on the train too? So watch the clip and then let's talk about it and exchange so we can all strengthen and build our community.
Amber, I'm gonna ignore the fact. Is this video? Is this from Oprah? Did Oprah do
It
this?
is from the OWN network, but what you're not about to do
I'm not.
disrespect my internet
Look,
television aunt,
I'm
okay?
just
Because you're
look.
not about to do that.
I'm not. I'm
Because
not. Billionaires are great, especially Black ones. I go Oprah.
the only exception to the respectable Negro rule is Auntie Oprah. So don't do that. Don't do that, okay?
Okay.
Don't do that. Because
Okay.
you've been knowing that.
It's fine. Oprah raised me. She my mama, really. So okay, y'all. It's been really hard seeing all of the things that have been happening in the Twitterverse and how its new owner is really trying to crumble and disband all of the communities that Black women and Black people have built over more than a decade. And it's been sad to watch that. But as Amber alluded to before, I am still very excited by the fact that I know that no matter where Black women go, that we will build community, that we will find a way, that we will help one another. And so I just want us to continue to lean into who we already are, to learn from the lessons of our ancestors, and to keep being the kind of people who just want other Black people to win, right? So I think as long as we can do that, then we're going to be okay. And like we talk about on this show all the time, our work is all about community. We are nothing without each other. And so whether that's in a digital space or a physical space, let's always be trying to figure out how we can build with those people around us and those people who are all around the world. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.
All right, good people. Thanks for listening to Brokish. For more episodes, visit us at brokish.com or subscribe, and Brokish will get direct deposited into your favorite podcast app on the 1st and 15th. Share Brokish with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Music for Brokish is Come Get Some by Blank and Kit. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You can play any and every position. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.